is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P. Please, if you're listening to us on your favorite audio podcast platform, by all means, follow us. Watching us on our YouTube channel, I urge you to hit that subscribe button below, smash the bell to the right. You'll get an update each and every time we update and upload a new version of E&P Reports. Howard Owens is a good friend. Howard, come and join me. I've known Howard now for 20 some odd years. We go way back. Howard, it wouldn't surprise you that I sold the first TRS-80 computers at Radio Shack in college. I think I'm dating myself right now. But I consider you and I both nerds because you and I both came into the newspaper industry on the digital side. You, correct me if I'm wrong, you published your first newspaper in fourth grade? I mean, you got some ink in your veins, right?
I think so, yeah. Well, I was a reporter initially and went the entrepreneurial route in about 1995 and started an online publication and taught myself HTML, and it's just been a learning process ever since.
You worked at Gatehouse, though, in senior management. That's when you and I bump heads. You were head of digital for Gatehouse for a while, correct, sir?
Right. It seems like we met once when I was at the Ventura County Star.
I think so too. Yeah,
that was my first executive job, and then I was a director of digital publishing at Gatehouse, and we crossed paths a few times. I remember you were doing something with card dealing or something. Yeah.
I'm old, and I did a lot of weird stuff in the 70s when I went to GW, so my brain sometimes comes and goes. But let me ask you the first question. You started one of the first. I mean, you really jumped ship. You left the traditional newspaper industry when it still had some, I don't want to say juice, but still, it was before a lot of those verticals had died, like in 2008, when we really lost jobs and homes, you know what I mean? And you jumped ship and decided to be one of the first pure play publishers in America. This was a big deal. What made you start the Batavian, correct, in 2008? Go ahead.
So two things. I want to just, first of all, mention 1995, East County Online, while not pure digital because we were associated with a weekly newspaper, we did a lot of online only content. We were doing some we had free classifieds, and we were doing a few things that were, not common in the industry at that time. So I kind of had that background. I got hired at Gatehouse to be an innovator. And one day the CEO, Mike Reed, came to me and said, what if newspapers are dying? What do we do? How do we replace newspapers? And I said, I think a lot of what we do to make money with newspapers online now, if you did away with the entire infrastructure of the newspaper and were able to replicate what we're doing without the newspaper, you get rid of all that cap cost, you can operate with smaller staffs, and you can be profitable. And so he told me to come up with a plan. And their idea was they were talking about launching it in Corning, where Gatehouse owned a natavian. I'm like, we don't want to compete with ourselves. Let's go disrupt somebody who isn't doing very well online. And I was already familiar with Batavia, where the Daily News did not have a news website. So I thought the community was ripe for the picking. And when I came out here and looked around, it had a really strong local business community, which I think is essential for an online-only publications, in the quote-unquote hyper-local space. So I wrote up a business plan. Mike approved it. We launched and did that for about 8 or 9 months. And then after a consultant had been hired, they decided to go in a different direction with the entire digital operations, move most everything to Chicago, eliminate me and my department. And with that went the Batavian. And so they shut it down essentially. And I just started it back up the next day.
So basically you got a chance to start it 9 months under Gatehouse. And then when they shut it down, were you able to pick up any existing data, the audience, the email list?
Yeah, the Gatehouse is very cooperative.
Okay. So
they sold me the computers for $1, and computers and cameras. They sold it to me for $1. I have nothing but, I know Mike Reed isn't always the most popular person in the industry, but I have nothing but admiration for him. He's always treated me well. Kirk Davis, my former boss, Bill Blevins, all great people, always treated me very well. It's not a acrimonious split at all.
But you stayed there rather than just say, okay, I'm still a leader in this industry. I've got the chops. Many people were looking for digital leaders and visionaries. You decided to stay in the independent pure play space. You even were a founder of a huge organization now, Lion, right? Local independent online news publishers. That was your baby. But you were doing this before anyone was thinking of pure play. I mean, now it's a big deal. What made you stay out of the industry and be the maverick, if I may use that overused term?
There are probably 2 or 3 things. One is I had a very unhappy experience in Bakersfield at the Californian, and a lot of the even that small family-owned place had a lot of corporate politics. And frankly, I still found that at Gatehouse. There was some politicking going on with people in other departments that I just wasn't comfortable with. I wasn't comfortable with the whole corporate culture. The other thing, having moved from California to upstate New York, where you get 4 seasons, you really like this. And the cost of living here is so much lower than California. So, and then I just really believed that the future of democracy depends on local news, and local news is only going to survive if we can find a way to make it work digitally. So I just felt really committed to that project.
Good for you. So now you're still in Batavia. Before we move on to, because I really want to get your feelings about the future of the industry. How is the Batavian doing? I mean, are you profitable? And you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. Are you a profitable online only newspaper in this small market in New York State?
Well, I always say yes, but an important thing to understand as an LLC, you have to be profitable. I mean, if you take a salary out, that's profit.
Right.
So we've always, my late wife and I have always enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle. I would say far more comfortable than I had at the Californian, where I made a lot more money, because California is so much more expensive.
Do you have competition locally now in Batavia? Are you pretty much the go-to independent voice or whatever of the community? Is there a local paper you're still competing with?
The Batavia Daily News still exists. On a business side, they're not competition at all.
Okay.
We crush them in total ad volume. Of course, they charge higher rates. I don't know if they overall produce more ad revenue than we do, but they have like 3 or 4, maybe 5 Genesse County advertisers on their website. We have 150. I mean, there's no competition there.
No competition.
We compete against them for news. I mean, as a newsman, I mean, and the people who freelance with me are both former Daily News employees. We love kicking their ass, which we often do, but we lose them too.
What's the audience like? Give me some nerdy metrics. Unique visitors, where you at?
Off the top of my head, I don't hold those numbers in my head too much, but we do 12 to 14,000 unique visitors a day. That's one of the most important things. That's been consistent for years. Facebook, we're on a great growth trajectory until Facebook became a factor, and then we just kind of leveled off there.
Sure.
And maybe would have anyway, because I think, as near as I can tell, our market penetration on a weekly basis is 70 or 80%. So how about how much bigger we could get.
How about email database? Are you building that?
We don't do email newsletter. We don't.
Do not. Okay. Why? Curious.
Time. Just
okay.
I'm busy enough, and one of the things that I've always found a stumbling block for me, and this is maybe a fault of my personality, is the daily discipline of doing that in this kind of job where things change every day. I just found hard to keep up with.
So your traditional model is there. You find our content online. I'm assuming you have a Facebook footprint, Twitter, anything? Yeah.
We do Facebook, not a lot of Twitter. We do Facebook, and I go back and forth on the usefulness of Facebook for our business. We were fortunate enough, compared to a lot of other local publishers that started later, we were fortunate enough that we established our audience before Facebook was a factor. And so there are a lot of, the majority of our readers are just hooked into coming directly to our homepage instead of coming to us through Facebook. And with other local publishers that I talk to are much more dependent on Facebook than we are.
All right. So you're not, and I'm assuming you don't do a lot of programmatic stuff or digital services or anything like. Are you building websites for people or anything like that?
It's almost all advertising. Now, I will say when the pandemic hit, because I was really nervous, I think all publishers were, right? Yeah, I could just see businesses collapsing, and I was really nervous. So as a hedge, we put our first programmatic ads. We got a small presence for a company called Ezoic doing programming, and just with a couple of ad positions, the $600, $700, $800 a month in revenue that produces, I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting rid of that. Even though it's turned out we didn't really need it, I'm not going to. Now that I got it, I'm not giving up that revenue.
I didn't see a lot of sponsored content on your site. Maybe I missed it. Do you sell?
Well, we do something called sponsored posts, which are generally just graphics. We don't have time to write stories for people. We don't have the resources. So Lisa Ace, who is a fantastic employee, and I better say that because she'll watch this. No, she is really great. She's been with me for more than 10 years now. And she's really kind of one of the secrets of our success. Our customers love her. She's just an adorable person. She works really well, services the customers really well, does everything they need. So that's kind of our secret sauce that I just let out of the bag. But now I forget your question, but basically.
No, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go through the normal, what's on everyone's mind. You remember the days when Gordon Burrell put out that one report saying it's all about digital services now, and everybody ran in that direction. Remember, I launched, what was the Propel for Gatehouse in about 100 markets back then?
Yeah, I remember that.
Everybody runs in a direction. I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, yes, he didn't lie. A lot of businesses are building websites and had to go at that time, especially since they weren't mobile adaptive, right? I mean, they were going to rebuild them, but it doesn't. So everybody stopped worrying about journalism.
Let me give you. I'll give you an overarching history here, if you don't mind. It'll be a longer answer, but I think it'll address everything you're trying to.
Yeah, I was trying to get you to bring it all home. I have a feeling you're like every other success story we've ever done here. It's back to just basic blocking and tackling. But I'll go ahead. Tell me.
That's what I say all the time. So the original business model for the Batavian with Gatehouse was we're going to start out blocking and tackling. I'm a big believer in online advertising. It works. It's effective when done right. It's easy to sell. Most newspapers do it wrong, which is why they have so few ads. But when it's done right and you have a good model, it's as easy to sell as the local shopper. It just sells itself almost. So that was the beginning point. But I always envisioned, I wrote a business plan where we were going to do video, and we were going to have video advertising, and we were going to do social media marketing and services. And over the time, I've tried through a company called Zebra Reach, I've tried a couple of apps to do order your food online, loyalty programs. I tried a membership club. I've tried the newsletter. I've tried a lot of other things to get to that next level of revenue, because we reached retail advertising revenue at a great level, easy. Getting to that next level.
I've got to ask, I think you had left Gatehouse by the time they had announced Radar Frog. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, so did you do a group on Knockoff too, or give that a shot? Or
we started. So I owe this to you know Rusty Coates, right?
Very, very well, sure.
Yeah, great guy. So he was a consultant for the Ventura County Star at one point. He came out, did a presentation, and talked about how radio was successful selling half-price gift certificates.
Right.
And that was and I had never thought, and he's like, that would work really well for online. I never had a chance to implement it in Ventura and Bakersfield. And then at Gatehouse, I wasn't in charge of revenue. when I took over the Batavian, I had enough money in the bank to last for 90 days.
Okay.
I had 90 days to get up to 40 advertisers at $100 average each, just to keep the lights on.
That's a 4,000 a month
Yeah.
nut is what you're going after. Okay.
Yeah, that's just to like, okay, we can stay in business and continue to grow. So on the 90th day, we signed that 40th advertiser.
Wow.
But part of what I did is one day I met with a local business owner, a restaurant here called TF Brown's. And he's that owner there, Rick Mancuso, is real good about crunching the numbers more than any advertiser I've ever dealt with. And he's like, if I spend X amount with you, I need an increase of business by X percent.
Never heard that. I'm kidding.
Yeah. So he said, I'm willing to spend with you, like $150 a month, which was lower than, the ad I was trying to get into. And I said, well, and I remembered Rusty Coates talking about coupons. I said, well, what if you gave me $300 a month in gift certificates and I sell them for half price and that'll pay for your ad? And he's like, okay, let's do it. I mean, it was that easy. And then I started the Deal of the Day program, which we do to this day. It's an important part of our revenue. The main flaw in it is there's no way to get a price increase out of it, really.
Exactly.
But
and you've trained a certain amount of advertisers that's the only way to buy advertising.
Yeah.
Is that? But if
it's a great reader service.
Yeah,
Readers
I mean, and if the
love it.
products are what, I mean, you learned that as long as people want what you're trying to sell, right? I mean, it's got to be mass appeal.
So we
stuff.
pretty much limit it to advertising. I think in this small of a town, there just isn't the mass of people to sell more specialty items.
Right.
Hair salons do reasonably well, but everybody needs their hair done once in a while. So
Right.
you got to have that thing that just about everybody needs. Everybody eats. Everybody has their hair done.
Right.
So that's
donuts and coffee, right? Donuts and coffee or something like that. We'll rock in there.
So the point, the getting to the next revenue growth has been difficult because in a bootstrapped operation. And if you're for profit, the nonprofits aren't going to give you much, if any, money, and nobody out there that invests is interested in online local news because the growth path is slow. We're not going to produce massive returns in 5 years. It's just not going to happen. It's going to take decades for us to become the next Hertz and Pulitzer type of companies.
Wow.
But I believe it will happen.
But okay, so now you are, I don't want to say aged, venerable. I mean, you started Lion, and now I've seen some of your posts. I mean, you get in there sometimes and mix it up. I went to your personal page. Don't think I'm stalking you. And you've got this new breed that thinks, and I loved your response to it. I'm coaching you to. Someone had actually, in Lion said, well, advertising isn't necessary. It's evil. It's bad. We should be finding a different model, right? Because we're pure journalists. We serve our communities, and the ads are evil. Was that? And your response was amazing. I mean, can you give me
that actually goes pre-Lion. That was the first block by block, which was put on by Michelle McClellan and some other people in Chicago. And at the first big conference, first time everybody's in the room, somebody stands up and says, "Can't we just all agree now? We're all journalists. Advertising is evil." And right. I spoke up then, and my message has never changed. If you want to remain pure as a journalist, you need a diversified revenue stream. So you're not too beholden to anybody. One of the major flaws of a nonprofit model is that you can become beholden to your funders, and you have to go in the direction that they want you to go in. And with getting not too deep in the weeds, that's kind of what's happened with Lion. I'm pretty unhappy with the direction of Lion in some ways right now, where the funders have too much power. And that's the problem. That's one of the flaws of nonprofit. Even if you go to readers, the overarching attitude of the readers in your community is still going to shape your news because you're trying to please them. With advertising, especially in our model where you have 150 advertisers, I can piss off any one single advertiser. I can piss off 5 of them with some coverage, and we'll be in business. I'm not beholden to a particular narrative just to please an advertising base. And I think that gives you a lot more independence. Also, my other part of the message is we're here to serve our community, our whole community. local communities with strong local business bases have lower infant mortality rates, higher graduation rates, less teen pregnancy, fewer single mothers, less drug addiction, less crime. When you can help your business community thrive, you help your whole community thrive. So I feel as a journalist, I have an obligation to help our local journalists because I'm our local businesses, because we're here to make the community better.
It's also funny that when I've stood up and responded to this, maybe we've done it at the same conference, I also cite research that advertising is content.
Right.
That, I mean, it's could you
look at our business model. People love, our readers love that all our ads are on the homepage.
Right.
It becomes like a local business directory.
I mean, but it's like, could you imagine how, and the alternative weekly industry kind of grew as the big dailies said, well, we don't want to deal with restaurants and bars. They're bad pays. I mean, we can't collect from them. So, and they're small guys and we just don't. So, but remember, alternative weekly had all that advertising. Half the utility of an alternative weekly were the ads, weren't they?
Right. Yes. I certainly, when I was a big San Diego Reader fan, when I lived in San Diego, and I looked at all the ads too.
Right. I mean, who's got beer here? Who's singing there? Who's doing this there? I mean, this is content that people crave. We'd be pretty boring without advertising. So
people want to know what is going on at their local businesses, whether it's the local jewelry store or the local bar that's going to have a band this week.
But again, knowing you, and I went to your website. That's where I was setting you up when the sponsored content. I see no over blending of church and state. You guys definitely do news. And you do good news. And again, it goes back to basic blocking and tackling. I think, this is the response I loved you gave. I was reading it, and I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not as brilliant as you, Howard, but you basically said to this guy, stop overthinking. Just take a breath. I mean, do you want to be a local news publisher? You better have passion for it. These were the things. Then if you have a passion for doing local publishing, get out there and start, right? Yeah. And start doing great local journalism. Because when you think about it, Howard, now I'm going to pontificate because it's my program. I can do whatever the hell I want. All we do is rent eyeballs for a living. Isn't that about it? I mean, is that too basic? I mean, you can boil it down to that. I think there's something more to it in being that glue to a community. Sure. And the other thing I want to say is, good friend of mine, Vin Crosby, years ago. Yes, Vin. Years ago, he was talking about how the local news was dying. There wasn't, people didn't want local news. And I'm like, no. And I think the Batavian has proven that. Look at our audience size. People are always saying everybody in town reads the Batavian. And I pretty much believe that's true based on the feedback I get. People have a hunger and passion, especially in a small community where everybody knows each other, to know what's going on in their community. And online is the most effective vehicle to do that, especially if you're kind of being as real time as possible. Here's what's going on in the community now. People eat it up. And I still feel like most of the industry does not get that. The newspapers, I think, are still so hindbound into this cyclical way of publishing news. And we're just going to give people the headlines and links. There's still this large kind of dinosaur newspaper thinking in the industry. When I look at any newspaper website, that's my first thought. Well, here's what I was going to warn our audience about. You're going to get a lot of, I'm very proud of our audience here at ENP, and since I've had it for 2 years, it's really going to get you some attention. A lot of people are going to go to your website, Batavian.com, correct?
Batavian.com with THE, thebatavian.com.
Thebatavian.com. And they're going to look at your site. And some nerdy, snarky people are going to say, this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I know these people because they say that a lot.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
Directly.
How dare you have 1 million ads there? And how dare you do that? Where's less is more? Where's that New York Times feel where, there's only one ad on the page, and you are the complete opposite of that. However, your readers aren't leaving you, right? And they're reading, your page views are there and your unique visitors are there. So what say you to the snarky designers who are going to come to your page now and poo-poo you, sir?
Data, right? We're all supposed to be data driven. So let's go back to the Ventura County Star. I think I kind of helped invent the model of headline and links, and what I called back then, and I've heard others in the industry talk about the limited inventory model. We're just going to have a few ads on our page because that's going to create scarcity.
Right.
Well, it's really a false scarcity. And when you're dealing with small businesses, they don't get banner rotation. You can explain it all you want, and they're still going to distrust it. They want to see their ad every time it's on the page. So that was something I really learned back as far back as Ventura, trying to sell ads sometimes. And back then I was like resistant to the idea. No, Mr. Business Owner, you need to get how we're doing things. It really is good for you. Trust me. Then when I was at Gatehouse, two things happened. First, I saw this website up in Watertown, New York called News Junkie, which was kicking the ass of the Watertown Daily Times, also a Johnson newspaper like Batavian. And they had all the ads on the homepage. So my wife and I drove up there and I interviewed a bunch of advertisers. Everybody's addicted to the News Junkie. They're saying their advertising is effective. They're very happy with their advertising. I got to pay attention to that. Around the same time, you may remember Gatehouse got into a lawsuit with the New York Times. And this is where the data comes in. It was they had started, New York Times with the Boston Globe had started a chain of local, hyper-local websites. I forget the name of them now.
Try to remember, go ahead.
Yeah. But they were aggregating all of the content off the Gatehouse websites. And their argument was this Jeff Jarvis kind of magical belief about the power of links, that people, that links are the economy of the web. And if you link to other things, that helps everybody out. And links are fantastic. So that was their argument. We're linking to it. That's good enough. It's not copyright infringement. Well, part of copyright is if you take too much of one thing, it does become copyright, right? And it became my job to prove that there really wasn't, for the sake of the lawsuit, that there really wasn't that much traffic coming from those links. And one of the things I did is I had, web analytics for 100 daily newspapers, most of them in small towns. And when I looked at it, nobody clicks on links. More than half the audience goes to the homepage and leaves. Obituaries, opinion, sports, those main navigation links dominate the top 10. You never, at least back then, you never see a story in the most clicked links from the homepage. On no homepage at any site did a headline get more than 2% of the links on any given day, week, or month on any site. And I remembered John Patel had written a book called The Search about Google, and he talked about the database of intentions. And my way of thinking about it is people go to a website with a specific intention. They go to their local news website to find out what has happened since I last visited this site. That's why the blog format and the chronological order is so important to a local news site, because people want to scroll down till they get to where they left off last time, so they can just find out what has happened since I last visited. Because they might visit daily. A lot of our people come to our site 2 or 3, 4 times a day. Some people only come once a week. Reverse chronological meets all those needs in a way that the traditional editorial chosen hierarchy does not. That's the biggest problem of newspaper websites and why their websites are failing. Okay, so reverse chronological, put everything on the homepage so that the intention of finding out what's going on in my community can be met in that one space. Nobody has to break that intention by clicking on a link. So, and that's data driven.
That's amazing. Basically, just let them scroll so they say, whoops, this is where I left, and I'm okay. I'll come back later and hope you put something near the top again. And you usually do, because your website is very updated. There's a lot. You don't publish once a week. You're publishing 24/7, right? There's
a deadline every minute.
Right.
We haven't been as strong in this in recent years for a lot of different reasons, personal stuff going on and whatever. But for a long time, our motto, we work very hard at doing this. We want to answer the question every minute of every day: what's going on what is going on in my community right now?
Well, that's pretty much I've heard from most success stories of hyperlocal journalism. that when you pick up your paper or look at your homepage, whatever, or, medium, or your email, right now it's the new buzz is email newsletters that have no website. It's email is the thing. And 6 a.m. City is coming. I'm sure you keep your ear to the ground and others, but it has nothing to do with the platform. I think that's why
we're not doing newsletters, but I love newsletters because I think newsletters have a chance to get back to old newspaper where you can have the Bulldog edition, you can have the evening edition.
Exactly. I mean, but it doesn't matter how your paper, surgical implant doesn't. Is it good content? Is it art? And in your case, since you're trying to be Batavia, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything from church suppers to watching the school board, being that, as you said, the final check to power, which is in our Constitution. You take all those seriously. Right. High school sports, whatever it takes, this is my town, and I'm going to show it to them on my homepage.
The good and the bad, the ugly. Sometimes, people don't want to hear the bad news. That's there too. But we also, we publish lost pet reports. I mean, almost nothing is too small for us. And sometimes people give us a hard time about it.
Well, there you are. I've been going again. I've been having snarky people yell at me. They say they love my podcasts and podcasts, but they hate the length because I go too long. I mean, you're making me sit through 38 minutes. I'll average 1 to 2. So I went a little long with Howard. I apologize to those that are going to yell at me again, but I've really enjoyed this because again, everybody should just take a breath. Don't get caught in the weeds. Go back to basics. And in most cases, what I'm learning, at least as we explore this whatever magical world of news publishing, which whatever the medium is, if you got bad content, then it doesn't matter. We start there, and then you can find ways to monetize it. I like your attitude about advertising as well. It's not a necessary evil. It's content, and it's something you do. Howard,
usually it only takes another advertising guy to understand that.
Well, you see now, I come from the ad side. You came from the journalism side. But you obviously have
to get through life. At times, I had to learn how to sell. I sold commodities. I sold newspaper subscriptions, and so I learned how to sell. So it was not difficult for me to make that transition.
If someone wants to get a hold of you, Howard, how do they do so? What's your email address?
It's Howard. It's real easy. Howard at thebatavian.com.
The Batavian. Should we spell it, or it's pretty much how it's
BATAVIAN.com. And I want to say I'm always happy to talk to other publishers and share my ideas and my religion about some of this stuff. And also, aspiring local publishers, I encourage them to reach out to me as well. That's really why I started Lion. That's always been my passion, is to help other, especially journalists, follow kind of in these footsteps and be successful doing it.
And you also have your own blog going.
I don't do very much with that, but howardowens.com. But you look at the date of the last post, it's been a while. I don't have a lot of time to blog.
There you go.
Howard, love to get back to it.
It was so good to see you again. You stay healthy and well, and stop looking so young. I mean, somehow I look much
older. I'm an old man. Come on.
You take care, and thanks for your time, sir.
Thanks, Mike.